Should be up everything.
And there's nobody here.
You there. Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Good morning, good morning, good morning to everyone. I am happy you're here with us today. And I just want to let you know that there is an infinite source available to everyone. It is there for each who seek it, no matter their gender, their religion, or their race. Believe what you may, but know that the source of the universe is also the source of each of us. Therefore, the principle supporting the stars is the principle supporting and available to each of us. As I declare this statement in the first person, I am declaring it for all. I am open and receptive to this divine living principle. Father, Mother, God, I am grateful. This is my declaration. This is my truth. And as I accept it, so it becomes. And all is well and well indeed. Happy Mother's Day. And there are mothers who never born a child, but they have given to children what a mother gives, the passion and empathy and all those wonderful things. Almost 20 years ago, my mom, I want to get her up here for just a moment. I believe we might have a picture of her. I'm not sure. But let's click her up. Okay. Okay, we don't seem to be able to get her up, but my love for her is up, if nothing else. And the fact of the matter is that she made her transition uh, right around 20 years ago, in 2007. And today, I just want to share remembrance of her with these words from an anonymous writer. I send this prayer of gratitude into the vibrations of this day, this Mother's Day, this Mother's Prayer. I thank you from the heart for all you've done for me, and I bless the Lord for giving me the best mother there could be. I want to welcome some of you back and welcome others in for the first time. Welcome you into this practical, spiritual living experience brought to you from Unity of Chicago South, a beyond walls spiritual community. I'm Reverend R. Ken, your guide, as we continue this journey from theory to expression. We began with awareness, learning to see, then followed that with release, learning to let go of what no longer serves us. And then reframing, learning to see what is going on, but see it differently. And then alignment, learning to live in accordance with truth. You see us, we see it differently. We understand that spirit, the divine, the source is in place. And now we must align ourselves to the fact that whatever might be going on, there's still spirit or source within there. That is the truth. And today we take the next step in this saga of moving consciousness to a different level. And that step is action. Action. You see, it doesn't matter how much spiritual knowledge you might have. It even doesn't matter what your particular sect in the Christian religion, let us say, or any religion is. After you bring it in, you have to allow it to come through you, to be lived, to be experienced. You see, faith without works is dead. That's from the epistles of James, rather, excuse me. You can't sit down and wait for the opportunities to come. You have to get up and make them. Madam C.J. Walker said that. The only limit to our realization of tomorrow is our doubts of today. Franklin D. Roosevelt, former president of this country. The divine idea is always seeking expression. None other than Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity. Different voices, very different voices, but with the same focus, the same idea. What we know must be lived. What we know must be lived. I've often, or on several occasions, mentioned to you that I was fortunate to meet someone along the way, and they posed a very simple question to me, and I reiterate this every opportunity I get, not to just spur you on, but to remind me that the question that was asked still exists. It must be answered daily. Do you believe what you're saying? Do you believe what you teach? Are you living that experience? And you can't live that experience until you allow what you believe, what you learn, what you teach to come through into your life experience. And sometimes it's very difficult. And that's why we do what we do with this practical spiritual living. And when we talk about action, what is action really? It is not just doing more, it's doing what aligns with what you now understand. So you can see why that question is so important and why we should remind ourselves. We don't have to have someone externally ask us that question. Am I living what I say I believe? Now, we can get hung up with the material expression of what we say we believe, such as I believe I should be in a mansion with 49 rooms. And of course, when we asked ourselves, am I living the 49 room mansion? And we say, no, I'm not. So I'm not living what I believe, but it's a little more mm, involved in that. And I hope that as we go through what we teach, that you will see that and be able to hold yourself accountable spiritually to allow that spiritual holding yourself accountable become an expression in your life. So many times we try to hold ourselves accountable from how we're expressing in life, but we haven't checked our thinking, our feeling, what's going on inside of us, that part that nobody sees, nobody knows but us. You see, the fact of the matter is, most people don't struggle with knowing, they struggle with acting on and from what they know. And understand that it's not because they can, it's not because they can, but because fear interrupts, doubt delays, and comfort convinces them to wait. But clarity, I understand. I know what the truth is. Clarity without movement creates frustration. And what do? Well, we find outlets for the frustration. For the frustration. It might be the streets, it might be drugs, it might be alcohol, it might just be being a procrastinator. But the fact of the matter is, what's happening is that there's a knowledge base that's bubbling up inside of us, and it requires that we take action. And the other most beautiful, powerful thing is that that same energy that's bubbling up inside of us and that we're not moving on and that is moving us into frustration is the same place that we can go and say, how do I? How should I? What is the best way for me to move, to bring this forward? Think about it. It's causing uncomfortability, but the answer is in the cause of, or with the cause of the uncomfortability. We have to understand the principle responds not just to our thoughts. I'm thinking about that 26 room mansion, but something called embodied agreement. I said, wow, embodied agreement. I knew about thoughts and feelings coming together. I knew about that. I heard that's a marriage. That is the embodied agreement when our thoughts and feelings come together within us, not in our conversation, but within us. That embodied agreement allows us to move forward into that thing we say we want, that thing we say we are, that thing we say we choose to be. Embodied agreement, thought, feeling coming together, not in conversation, but within us internally to soothe that energy that's bubbling up saying, you got to move. You got to get it going. Because if you don't get it going, I need to move. I need to grow. I need to expand. I need to be more. And when that agreement comes with that, yes, we need to be more. We need to expand. I'm with you. Now, what should we do? How do we do it? So often we miss to ask that question to the source that is creating the energy that is moving us. You know, we come to a point in this practical spiritual living experience where we just stop and we say, let's share, let's discuss, let's move this idea forward. Just as we heard from different voices, we open the mic, so to speak, open the room, open this space, so other voices that have an idea can share. And we're at that point right now. And what happens is I'll pose a question and I'll pause for a minute just to see if anyone wants to respond to that one. And I'll give mine afterwards. And then hopefully we'll go to another question. And understand this. If you're not on with us on our team platform, you can comment in the Facebook comments or YouTube comments. Or better yet, next week, you can be a part by coming on to the platform. With that said, I want to ask the question, can any of you think of something you know is right for you, but you haven't acted on it yet? Something that's sitting back in the back of your mind, deep in your heart, and saying, you know, I know, but I haven't moved on it. When I hear that question, I think of opportunities. I was just having a conversation with my daughter and a friend, and we were talking about opportunities and being able to stand up and embrace the opportunity and go back inside and say, okay, I'm ready to embrace it, and I'll go where you take me. Some folks say, well, God is going to take me wherever I want to go, and I depend on the Lord, and that's fine. The idea is, though, sometimes we have to move ourselves out the way in order for us to grow into whatever it is we think we want. But remember, we want that embodied agreement, so we need to think it, and we also need to feel that we deserve it. What tends to stop you from taking the step necessary? Talked about fear, talked about comfort, talked about doubt. But think on that. What's stopping you from taking the step into what you know, you feel, that's moving you, that's causing the frustration because it needs to move? What's preventing the step necessary to move that into action? To move it into action. The minister is always supposed to have an answer. There's a little cartoon that I kept that one of my late sisters gave me. It's too profound or too profane to share with you. But I watch it every once in a while just to remind me of what the little duck is saying about the minister. We go through stuff. As the duck said, why do you think they can talk all this stuff? Because they've gone through some mess. And sometimes some ministers want to elaborate on it, and some ministers want to play like it never happened, and maybe it never happened in their life. But because you go through some stuff, you can relate to ideas, concepts that say, what's stopping you from taking this step? And analyze it, because there's a knowing, if you're in the ministry, there's a knowing that there is this greatness outside of you. Some call it God, some call it source, universe, many different names. But it is connecting with it in such a way that you create that embodied agreement within you. In other words, enough faith to say, yeah, I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know where, but I'm just gonna go ahead and go for whatever this is that's tearing at me and creating this frustration within me. And then the question that comes after that, what is it that you haven't done? Why haven't you done it? What's prevented you? None of this is to put us down. It's just to ask, give ourselves something that we can ask ourselves to make changes in our lives if we choose. And the final one would be, what would change if you acted before you felt fully ready? What would happen if you said, I'm not ready. I need to get this in place. I need to get that in place. Now, see, there must be something the minister went through, because he can talk about that too easily. It just rolls out there. I want to get it in place. Now, sometimes that's a good thing. So don't get me wrong and say, well, you feel it, you jump on it. No, sometimes it's a good thing. That's why it's calming yourself and opening yourself up to that inner source and let it play out to direct you. But be ready to move. And you're not waiting. You're open and you're taking action, and you are allowing this inner source to guide you. Sometimes we think that we need to be perfect, and that's just not true. Action does not require perfection. It doesn't. What it does require is willingness. Is willingness. Did anyone want to say anything to me? Take a look at our screen before I move on. If you have anything to say, just unmute yourself and speak. It is the moment, the willingness, the moment when you say to yourself, I will move in the direction of what I know is true. So we have to establish, what do we know is true? And based on the last 4 weeks, we should have an idea, or an idea has been presented on what is true, or definitely on a spiritual nature. There is that which is within us that we're working to connect with. And it is that connection that we make that allows us to move when we don't really see what we're doing, how to move it. But we know something is moving, and we say, well, it must be to move on the blue. That's what it is. And we decide that we're going to move on the blue. And we move and we get to the blue. We say, it wasn't moving on the blue then. Why did you disappoint me? You did it again. I did what you said. Well, it said move. You did. And somewhere along the line, we didn't stay connected to know that it was saying move, but I need you to move to the red. Not your favorite color, but to the red. But that was in there all the time. And if we get to the blue and we say, wow, I moved, I'm here at the blue, it doesn't seem like this is where I need to be. This doesn't seem like this is what I want. It doesn't seem like that, but I did move. So let me go back and ask, did I move to the right color? because I knew I needed to move. But sometimes we'll say, I knew I shouldn't have done that. I could have stayed here. And we're rehashing the past, something that I say fairly regularly. There's a divine presence, many names. I'm not getting into that. There's a source. We did not create ourselves. Many names. Not going to get into that. But the one thing this divine has not done yet, I don't believe it can, nothing is written about it doing it, is go back and change the past. So as we lament about the past and the mistakes we've made in the past, the fact is, when we stay there, when we give them emotions, we anchor ourselves down. We anchor ourselves down into that devastation, however we see it. If it's devastation, if it was some kind of roadblock, but into that. And that prevents us from moving forward. That prevents us. What did scripture say earlier? Faith without work is dead. So you got to do the work to make the faith come forward. It didn't say once your faith has been shaken, you need to sit down, cry about it, and think about all the wrong moves you made. It's important to know that, but we want to know that while we're still moving forward, even though I made a bunch of them. I don't know what's up front, but I know God, I know source, I know the universe, whatever it is, it's present and has not shut me out. Those of you that know scripture, that is one of the, I want to say aspect, but that's one of the ways you can interpret the prodigal son. That source of you, that creator of you, never turns its back on you and says, I have no room, no time for you. You can always return. So it's not holding you in a situation where it says you were not a good person, remember? You didn't do good things, so I'm gonna mess up your life. That's not what it does. As the prodigal son's father said, welcome. You've done all those crazy things, but welcome. Come on. I welcome you in. I embrace you. That's the Father. That's the source. That's the creator, always embracing us in a spiritual way and allowing us to take that embrace and move it forward into action. Into action. So those of you that have followed us know that we work with affirmations, and I will explain real quick the difference between an affirmation and an affirmation. An affirmation says, I am wonderful, I am great, and it says, do that every morning, and there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing. There's a slight issue, though. When we constantly feed our subconscious, when we constantly feed our brain, when we constantly fill our mind and our consciousness with something that does not exist at the moment, it rebels. It says, no, what you talking about? That ain't real. That's that. Now we can get over that. We can keep working and working and working and get that affirmation to stick one day. But there's something called affirmation. And what that is, it says, look, let's cooperate. And mental science tells us this is the way to go. Why? Because we're wired to find answers. Our brain is wired to find answers. So even though I'm telling it I'm rich, I'm beautiful, I'm healthy, and all, it says, yeah, but you ain't. But with the affirmation, the question becomes, why am I moving into greatness in this moment? Why am I so positive? Why am I? And the brain, by its nature, the subconscious, by its nature, has to say, let me go out and figure it out. I'm going to come back with an answer for you. You see how that works? So an affirmation for the work that we're doing right now could be, why am I now taking aligned action with clarity, confidence, and purpose? And we leave it. You don't have to write down the answer or what you think. Let me see how I want to answer. No, you're asking your inner beingness, which is that brain and the subconscious and the nervous, all of it. You're saying, go fetch me an answer. And when that answer comes, what are we doing today? We have to take some action. Now, if I can ask my inner being, if I can ask my subconscious, if I can ask my brain, if I can ask my mind to go find me an answer, what would be the next logical progression? Well, now that you brought me the answer, I'm going to ask you another question. How do I make it so? How do I make it so? What are the steps that I need to make it so? And allow the answer to that to come. It may point you to a book to read. It may point you to a place to go. You don't know when you ask the question, but you want to be what? Willing. Taking action is that willingness. I was speaking to someone recently and we were talking about free will. He said, I don't know. And that's a good response to free will, without a doubt. I don't know. Because when you think about it, we have been created in such a way that we've been given the power to destroy ourselves based on the power to choose free will. So it couldn't be like, everything I read over here in this book, this scripture, whatever it might be, wherever it might come from, whatever practice, spiritual practice, says this and that this power is directing my life and doing this. And I've had this debate with the class that I take as I want to stay sharp. And there are those that say, yes, God is involved every day. And there are those that say, well, not every day, but yeah. And there are those that say, probably not at all. And then there are those that say, you've been given free will to do whatever. That's God. You're doing the God act right there. Just saying. Let's remember as we kind of recap where we've been over these 5 weeks. Awareness. Awareness allows us to see. And then release. Release allows us to let go of what no longer serves us so that we can move. And then we move into reframing. You see, once I release it, I have put myself in a position where I can see it differently. I don't have to see it like I was taught to see it, like I was raised to see it. I can see it differently. And then reframing allows us to see differently into a place where we can go into alignment. And now we can live differently from what we see differently. And after all of that is put together, the next step is necessary. Action. Because without action, we are holding all this wonderful knowingness, truthness inside of us, but it takes action to allow it to express. I'm going to thank you so much for sharing this practical, spiritual living journey with us here at Unity of Chicago South Beyond Walls Spiritual Community. And as we continue with this interactive journey, we begin a new series. as well as adding a new interactive program at the end of the month. But as far as our next series that begins on May 17th, it's looking at what's gone on over the past few weeks. We just talked about it, alignment or seeing it different all the way through action. Well, all of that was the inner work. We've done the inner work over these past 5 weeks. So now the question becomes, how do we live this in real life? Because this is what called practical spiritual living, you see. Well, the next step is decisions, choosing in alignment, something that challenges many, yet can have an immediate impact on our life experience. So I invite you to join us Sunday at 11 a.m. as we begin this wonderful next phase of this spiritual journey. But until then, this is Reverend R. Ken on behalf of the Unity of Chicago South Beyond Walls Spiritual Community, bidding you blessings and bliss. Namaste.